Hello, world and universe. Welcome to the Trevor Donald Experience. Manifest your truth. And this whole controversy about election fraud accusations are a real thing. Remember, the DA out of Fulton County, Fani Willis, and the New York Attorney General, Letitia James. Remember, they went after President Donald Trump for voting election violations. Maybe your vote does matter. Vote with your head and not your heart. Besides Trump, though, there have been other people that have been prosecuted and convicted of voter fraud, such as this case out of Colorado that I'm going to talk about today with this white female woman named Tina Peters, who got a 9-year prison sentence. You got to hear this story straight out of Colorado. But remember, this voter fraud controversy has been going on for a long time. Just remember when the Bush-Gore election took place back in the year 2000 with the whole Chad situation in Florida, where the Florida Supreme Court ordered a statewide recount of all undervotes, over 61,000 ballots that the vote tabulation machines had missed. And George Bush won the recount and became president, while ironically, his brother Jeb Bush was the governor of Florida. How coincidental. And now redistricting is a national headline. There are chess moves being played by both parties today. And right now, it looks like the Republicans are slightly winning. We need to pay attention to our politics, not only locally, statewide, but nationally. And as of May 2026, when I talk about paying attention locally, statewide, and nationally, 7 states have passed a new congressional map or redistricting that's been going on. And what are those 7 states? California, Florida, Missouri, North Carolina, Ohio, Tennessee, and Texas. And Republicans have a 217 to 212 majority in the U.S. House of Representatives with 5 vacancies. So in saying all of that, let's get into this particular case I want to make you aware of if you're not aware of. It's about this Colorado Appeals Court appears skeptical of Tina Peters' conviction in the Trump 2020 election. So what is the backstory behind this? So Tina Marie Peters served as county clerk of Mesa County, Colorado from 2019 to 2023. In the months after the 2020 election, she became deeply involved with those who believed the election had been stolen from Donald Trump. But here's the breach in what she did, allegedly. Tina Peters was convicted of state crimes for sneaking in an outside computer expert to make a copy of her county's election computer system during a software update in 2021. She and her deputy, now listen, follow the story, Belinda Kinsley, allowed unauthorized personnel access to the Mesa County election system, including providing an individual who was never hired by the county with an access badge. They also had the security cameras overlooking the access machines turned off. The copied hard drive images ended up online and were discussed by Tina Peters and others at a conspiracy symposium hosted by the MyPillow CEO, Mike Lindell, in South Dakota. If you remember, he was in the news a couple years ago all the time. I think he's out of Minnesota, the MyPillow Corporation. Experts described the breach as serious, saying it could provide a practice environment allowing anyone to probe for vulnerabilities that could be exploited in a future election. So she allowed an outsider to come in, a computer expert, to take images of what was going on with the machines, and she talked about it publicly. So you got some First Amendment issues in here of free speech. But here's her trial and her conviction. Tina Peters was convicted in August 2024 on 7 of 10 charges, 4 of which were felonies. The day after her conviction, she appeared on Steve Bannon's War Room podcast to insist she would continue pursuing her allegations. So she got convicted. At the sentencing, Judge Matthew Barrett sentenced Tina Peters, now listen to this, to 9 years in prison in October 2024, citing the immeasurable damage she had done to local elections and trust in the electoral process, her lack of remorse, and calling her a charlatan. That's what the judge said. Who peddled snake oil. So that's what Judge Matthew Barrett, he called her, said she had a lack of remorse, and he called her a charlatan who peddled snake oil. The Colorado County Clerks Association director told the court that Peters' actions had led directly to death threats against election workers across the country. So there are many people out here, remember, for the mega movement or the people that are anti-Trump, there were 77 million people that voted for Donald Trump and think the way Donald Trump thinks, whether you agree or disagree. There are a lot of people out here that take this voting seriously, and there are a lot of people that don't take their vote seriously and don't even vote or pay attention. Or they just vote based on identity politics, meaning if they've been voting Democrat for the last 50 years in the family, they're going to continue to do it. If they're black, the presumption and assumption is vote Democrat. I don't believe that's the way to go. I think you should vote with your brain, your eyes, and your ears, and not your heart. So after this woman, Tina Peters, gets convicted, Trump tried to intervene. Trump called Tina Peters a brave and innocent patriot on Truth Social, and warned of harsh measures if Colorado didn't free her. But remember, these are state charges and not federal. Michael Flynn called on Attorney General Pam Bondi to move Peters into federal custody. Can't do that. These are state charges, not federal. So remember, the president can only pardon somebody for federal crimes. The president is the governance over the United States. The governance over state charges is the governor. So if you have a state charge, the only way you can get clemency or pardon is by the governor. So the governor of Colorado has to do it. That's why Trump tried to have Pam Bondi move it into federal custody, but these were state convictions. Trump claimed to have pardoned Peters in December 2025, but the appeals court found no precedent for a president pardoning someone for state crimes, ruling the pardon had no impact on her case. So, in the latest developments, as of April 2026, a Colorado appeals court upheld her conviction in a 3-0 ruling, but threw out her 9-year sentence and sent the case back for resentencing. So look at all the chess moves and the legalities between prosecutors, state prosecutors, federal prosecutors, state rulings versus federal rulings. How does the president have an effect on this situation versus the governor of Colorado? And then you have these appellate courts, these state courts. These appeals go up the chain of command. Sometimes they even get to the Supreme Court, which is at the top of the hill. The appeals court found the trial judge had gone too far by factoring in Tina Peters' continued public statements about election fraud. Remember, she has a First Amendment right to speak her mind, ruling that amounted to punishing her for her protected free speech under the First Amendment. Colorado Governor Polis has suggested the original sentence was overly severe for a first-time offender and has indicated he is close to granting her clemency. The clemency or the pardon will, in a state charge, comes from the governor. So she remains a convicted felon, but her sentence is now under review at the trial court level. So we talked about appellate courts, the trial courts, sometimes the Supreme Court is involved. Understanding and having an overall view of how laws are drafted and legislated is very important and could help you in making a decision on who you would vote for, both locally, statewide, and federally. The power of your vote is in the power of the pen. The power of the politician is not in the power of their voice, it's in the power of how they legislate with the power of the pen. So don't always listen to what's coming out of their mouth. Watch and look at how they are legislating and forming laws that are on your behalf or against your moral and ethical freedoms. That's how you should vote. We have to make these politicians accountable. We cannot have pulpit pimping by our politicians. Tell me what you think of this case about Tina Peters out of Colorado, Mesa County, Colorado, who got convicted for election fraud and sentenced to 9 years in prison. This has been the Trevor Donald Experience. Manifest your truth.